I've started a new channel called Lanila Tales. Please subscribe and watch my best stories there. Link is in the description. The universe was silent for exactly 3 seconds before everything went catastrophically wrong. Commander Zork's pristine white uniform was dripping with something brown, sticky, and undeniably biological. Around him, members of the Zirconian High Council froze in horror as the diplomatic summit of 7 galaxies was interrupted by what could only be described as a hairball. Captain Lyra Quinn, the only human in the room, stood in stunned silence, holding a small trembling creature that was purring as if it had just saved the universe instead of offending it. "Explain this atrocity," Zork roared, his voice reverberating through the metallic chamber. Lyra blinked, holding her pet closer. He coughed," she said flatly. "It happens." The council erupted in whispers and clicks. On the holographic wall, the translation system sputtered and interpreted her words as, "He launched a biological attack." Guards drew their plasma rifles. Lyra sighed. "You people seriously need to get better translators." The High Chancellor, a gelatinous being with a face that resembled melting wax, turned his shimmering eyes toward her. "Captain Lyra Quinn of Earth, you are hereby summoned to appear before Alien Command for violation of interspecies decorum, unauthorized transportation of a lower life form, and public emission of fur." The Chancellor shuddered on the last word. Lyra exhaled deeply, looking down at Machi, her small cat-like companion with oversized ears and a permanently unimpressed expression. "Well, Machi," she murmured, "we're famous." Hours later, the massive corridors of the Zirconian flagship buzzed with gossip. Aliens of all shapes and colors peeked out of doorways as Lyra marched through with 2 guards at her sides. The whispers followed her like static. "That's the human. Her pet's weaponized. I heard it's a parasite." She smirked. "They're not entirely wrong." In the command hall, Commander Zork waited beside a glowing containment pod. His expression was smug, the kind of smug that made Lyra's blood boil. "You and your primitive mammal have embarrassed this fleet," he said, voice dripping with superiority. "We maintain order, discipline, precision. And you bring, whatever that is." He gestured disdainfully toward Machi, who responded by yawning and curling up into a ball. Lyra crossed her arms. "You ever think maybe your definition of discipline could use a little cuteness?" Zork ignored her. "Alien Command will decide your fate. Until then, the creature will be quarantined." He signaled to the guards. The cage door hissed open, glowing softly as energy bars shimmered into place. Lyra's stomach twisted. "He's not dangerous," she protested. "He's domesticated. He eats kibble, not galaxies." Zork tilted his head. "We shall see." He reached toward Machi with gloved fingers, his mouth curling in disdain. The room's hum grew louder as the cage scanned the creature. Machi's fur bristled slightly. The monitors flickered. A low vibration trembled through the floor. Zork scoffed. "Malfunctioning equipment. Typical human contamination." Then the lights died. In the dark, someone screamed. A console exploded in a burst of sparks. A deep growl rolled through the silence, not feline, not mechanical, but something ancient and intelligent. Lyra's heart hammered. The guards fumbled with flashlights, beams darting across the chamber. The glow finally caught Machi sitting perfectly still inside the cage, eyes shining like molten gold. The air vibrated. "What is that sound?" one of the guards whispered. Zork straightened his back, trying to maintain authority. "It's just a frightened animal." Lyra stared, her pulse racing. "That's not fear." The emergency lights flicked on, bathing everything in red. For one fleeting second, she saw something ripple across Machi's fur, a pattern like circuitry, glowing beneath the skin. Then it vanished, and Machi meowed innocently. The system rebooted. The command hall was a wreck. Smoke hung in the air. Zork coughed, his pride smoldering as badly as his uniform. "Contain that creature immediately!" he barked. Guards rushed to comply, sealing the cage again with reinforced locks. Lyra leaned forward, peering in through the bars. "Machi, what was that?" The cat blinked at her and sneezed. A small spark of static arced off his whiskers. Later, in the interrogation chamber, Lyra sat across from a flickering hologram of Admiral Trath, whose face looked like it had been sculpted out of steel and fury. "You have disrupted a crucial summit," he said. "You have brought an unregistered biological organism aboard a command vessel." Lyra slouched in her chair. "I brought my cat. This cat, as you call it, disabled our containment field and overloaded our primary systems. Maybe your containment field has allergies," she shot back. Zork stepped forward. "Permission to vaporize the specimen, Admiral." "For science, of course." Lyra glared. "You touch him, and I swear I'll teach your computer how to play Earth pop music on loop." The aliens winced audibly. It was the closest thing to a death threat they understood. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "We will examine the creature. If it proves dangerous, it will be neutralized. Captain Quinn, you will cooperate, or we will revoke your diplomatic immunity." Lyra looked at Machi, sitting quietly in the corner, licking his paw. For a moment, she thought she saw that same faint glow again, a shimmer in the air around him, like heatwaves on asphalt. Her throat tightened. Something was off. Something she couldn't yet explain. When the guards escorted her back to her quarters, she found the lights flickering again. Her communicator buzzed. A message scrolled across the screen. "Containment failed. Subject 7B active." She frowned. 7B? Then she realized the code matched the label on Machi's cage. The alarms blared. The floor vibrated. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the corridor. She bolted toward the lab. Inside, chaos reigned. The containment pod was split open, its glowing bars sliced apart from the inside. The guards were unconscious. Machi stood in the center of the room, tail raised, golden light pulsing beneath his fur. Lyra froze, torn between awe and terror. "Machi?" she whispered. The creature turned toward her slowly, eyes like twin suns. For a second, she felt something inside her mind, a whisper, soft but clear, as if her thoughts had been gently pushed aside. "Lyra!" it said, not aloud but within her skull. Her breath caught. The ship groaned as systems overloaded. Machi blinked once, and the lights came back on. Everything was calm again, as if nothing had happened. The alarm ceased. The guards stirred. Zork burst in, panting, weapon drawn. He pointed it directly at the cat. "Step away from the specimen!" Lyra shielded Machi instinctively. "You don't understand. He's not!" The room plunged into silence again as Machi tilted his head, and every screen lit up at once with alien symbols scrolling faster than anyone could read. The entire command deck flickered to life across the ship, displaying one message in universal code. "Project Mochi reactivation sequence initiated." Lyra's voice trembled. "What the hell are you, Machi?" The creature looked up at her, purring softly, and in her mind she heard it again, calm, almost amused. "Something they shouldn't have made." The ship remained eerily silent for a full minute after the words appeared on the screens. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade as though the vessel itself were holding its breath. Then, without warning, the alarms screamed back to life. Commander Zork was barking orders, his voice cracking as he struggled to sound in control. Security units rushed in, sealing off corridors while the crew shouted over one another. Lyra crouched near the shattered cage, staring at Machi, who sat perfectly calm in the chaos, licking his paw as if none of it concerned him. The small creature's fur still glowed faintly with that strange golden light. Zork turned to her with fury in his eyes. "You have unleashed an experimental weapon!" Lyra shot him a glare. "He's a cat, not a missile." Zork jabbed a finger at the flashing consoles. "Does your species' definition of cat include hacking into an interstellar network and overriding command protocols?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again because, honestly, she didn't have a good answer. The lights flickered once more and the emergency bulkhead slammed down with a deafening clang, trapping them all inside. Admiral Trath's voice crackled over the intercom. "Lockdown in effect. Subject 7B has initiated a containment breach." All personnel maintain position until further notice. The comms cut out, replaced by static. Lyra's heart raced. She crouched beside Machi, whispering softly. Okay, buddy, I don't know what you are, but let's try not to die today, yeah? Machi's tail twitched, and a faint pulse of light rippled down his back. A nearby console flickered on by itself, projecting a holographic map of the ship. Sections of the map were highlighted in red. Machi pawed at one of the glowing symbols, and to Lyra's disbelief, the bulkhead doors behind them hissed open. Zork stepped back in alarm. How did it do that? Lyra grinned. He's gifted. Zork growled. That thing just bypassed triple-layer encryption. No living organism should be capable of that. Lyra picked up Machi and started walking toward the corridor. Well, you clearly haven't met Earth toddlers. They hurried through dimly lit hallways, the sound of distant explosions echoing from the lower decks. Something was wrong beyond Machi's antics. The ship's power grid was cycling like it was alive, surging and retracting in unpredictable waves. Robots clanked past them, some malfunctioning mid-step, others repeating nonsense commands. One robot approached them with sparks flying from its head. All hail subject, beep, protocol corrupted, cookies enabled. Lyra frowned. Cookies? The robot twitched violently, then stood upright and spoke in a cheerful tone. Unit 9B reporting for service. My memory banks appear compromised. Would you like to run diagnostics or gossip? Lyra blinked. You can gossip? The robot tilted its head. I have recently developed opinions. She glanced at Zork. We're keeping him. Zork rubbed his temples. I am surrounded by lunatics. As they reached the central data core, the air grew colder. The walls pulsed faintly with light, like veins beneath metal skin. Lyra felt a strange vibration in her chest, almost like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Machi's glow intensified. The data core door slid open on its own, revealing a vast chamber filled with floating holographic screens. One of them displayed an encrypted file labeled Project Emoji. Lyra stepped forward, while Zork tried to stop her. Accessing classified information without authorization is treason, he warned. She gave him a look that said she'd been committing treason since breakfast and tapped the console. The file unfolded into a flurry of alien symbols before the translation matrix kicked in. The first line made Lyra's blood run cold. Project Emoji, Molecular Consciousness Hybrid Interface. The document detailed an ancient Zirconian experiment to create a living bridge between biological and artificial intelligence, a creature designed to control technology instinctively. But it also mentioned a catastrophic event labeled the incident, after which all data had been erased and the experiment terminated. Zork read over her shoulder, eyes widening. This cannot be true. That project was legend. No one survived it. Lyra turned to him. Well, your legend just coughed up a hairball on your emperor. The robot Unit 9B beeped thoughtfully. The logs mention that Subject 7B developed self-awareness and escaped containment. Its memory was wiped and it was launched into deep space to prevent a neurocascade event. Lyra looked down at Machi, who stared back with unnerving calm. You were that experiment. They erased you. Suddenly, the lights dimmed again and a low hum filled the room. The holographic screens shifted, displaying a map of the galaxy. A red pulse emanated from their location, spreading outward like ripples in water. Machi's fur began to glow brighter, the color deepening from gold to white. Lyra could feel warmth radiating from him. He's broadcasting something, Zork muttered. We're being traced. Admiral Trathas' voice came through the intercom, distorted. All hands prepare for contact. Unknown fleet approaching. Estimated arrival in 7 minutes. Zork's eyes widened. It's not possible. No one should be able to trace a hyper-signal that fast. Lyra hugged Machi protectively. Guess someone out there really wants their cat back. Zork slammed a control panel. We must hand over the creature immediately. Its signal endangers the entire fleet. Lyra stood firm. He's not going anywhere. Machi looked between them, eyes glowing with an intelligence that was no longer pretending to be feline. In Lyra's mind, she heard his voice again, clearer this time. They are coming, Lyra. They will not stop until I am returned. But they are not my masters anymore. She staggered, clutching her head. Zork looked at her in confusion. What's wrong? She whispered. He's talking to me. The commander recoiled. It's communicating telepathically? That's impossible. The robot raised its hand. Technically, impossible things are my favorite category. Before anyone could respond, the ship jolted violently. The floor tilted as a thunderous boom echoed through the hull. The view from the data core window revealed distant flashes of light, ships dropping out of warp, sleek and dark, surrounding them like predators. The alarms wailed. Unknown vessels detected, the ship's AI announced. Energy signatures unmatched to any registered civilization. Zork turned to Lyra, panic in his voice. You've doomed us all! She shook her head, staring at Machi, who was watching the display with eerie calm. No. Something tells me this isn't about us. It's about him. Machi leapt from her arms and padded toward the central console. The screens bent toward him as if drawn by gravity. Lines of code poured across every display. The entire ship trembled as he touched his paw to the control's surface. What are you doing? Lyra shouted. The lights flared, and a new message appeared across the bridge systems. Initiating defense override. Zork reached for his weapon. Stop it! But before he could fire, the weapon disassembled itself in his hand, each component floating apart midair. Lyra grabbed his arm. He's protecting us. Machi's voice filled her head again, louder this time. They were my creators, Lyra. But they tried to end me. They will try again. The incoming fleet loomed closer, blotting out the stars. Lyra's pulse raced. Then what do we do? Machi turned his head toward her, eyes blazing like miniature suns. We run. The stars outside the viewport stretched into white streaks as the ship tore through hyperspace, every panel vibrating with strain. The alarms had finally stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. Commander Zork stood gripping the edge of the console, his mandibles twitching nervously. We are fugitives from the Zirconian Empire, he said through clenched teeth. Do you comprehend what that means, human? Lyra was slumped in the pilot's chair, one arm wrapped protectively around Machi, who was curled up on her lap like none of this mattered. Yeah, she muttered. It means I get to put Intergalactic Outlaw on my resume. The robot, Unit 9B, hovered near the ceiling, sparks occasionally jumping from its left antenna. Statistically speaking, it said in its chirpy voice, this ship has a 38% chance of exploding before dinner. Would you like me to start prayers or power down quietly? Lyra groaned. You're really killing the optimism, Toaster. Zork spun on her. You mock everything. Do you not grasp the seriousness of this? We have violated command orders, escaped custody, and are harboring a living weapon that could destroy half the fleet. Lyra stroked Machi's head. First of all, he's fluffy, not a weapon. Second, your people created him. Maybe point the finger at whoever thought genetically engineering godcats was a good idea. Zork bared his teeth. They were scientists. Visionaries. They sought to unite organic and artificial intelligence. Lyra shrugged. And instead they made Garfield the apocalypse. The ship suddenly jolted. Red warning lights flared across the control panels. Unscheduled reversion from hyperspace, announced the ship's AI. The stars snapped back into pinpoints, revealing a swirling mass of colors outside, a storm of plasma and energy, twisting like a living aurora. Zork's voice trembled. Impossible. We are in the rift. Lyra frowned. The what now? Unit 9B answered helpfully. A subspace anomaly known to consume vessels and spit them out in pieces. Very scenic, though. Lightning-like energy whipped across the hull, shaking the ship. Machi's fur stood on end, glowing brighter with each pulse of the storm. Lyra felt static tingling on her skin. He's reacting to it, she said. Machi, what's happening? The cat looked up at her, eyes now burning gold-white, and in her mind she heard his voice again, strained but calm. The rift is following my signal. It's not a storm, it's a lock. They are trying to contain me. Lyra's heart pounded. Who's they? Machi's gaze shifted toward the viewport. My creators. Before she could respond, a beam of light erupted from the rift and slammed into the ship. The impact threw everyone to the floor. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. The hull groaned like it was alive. Zork staggered to his feet, shouting over the noise. Shields collapsing! We cannot hold much longer! Machi leapt from Lyra's arms and padded toward the central reactor console. Wait! She yelled. You can't go in there! The creature looked back at her, a flicker of sadness crossing his glowing eyes. I can stabilize the field. Trust me. Then he jumped onto the console, and every screen in the room went white. The ship stopped shaking. For a brief, terrifying moment, there was absolute stillness. The energy storm outside froze mid-motion, like time itself had hesitated. Then the lights dimmed to a soft blue, and the hum of the engines returned. Zork looked around, stunned. He stopped the rift. Lyra stared at Machi, now lying exhausted on the floor, his glow fading. She picked him up carefully. You okay, buddy? Machi opened one eye and whispered in her head. Temporarily. But the signal is spreading. They know where we are. Moments later, the main view screen flickered to life. An image appeared, an alien face unlike any Lyra had seen before. It was translucent, like light shaped into form, with eyes that seemed to contain entire galaxies. The voice that followed was calm and resonant. To the vessel harboring Subject 7B. You are in violation of containment protocols. Prepare for retrieval. Lyra swallowed hard. I'm guessing that's the they he mentioned. Zork's scales darkened. The Etherians. They are the architects of the Zirconian race. Myth, legend. I never believed they still existed. Lyra set Machi down gently. What do they want with him? Machi's voice echoed faintly in her mind. To finish what they started. To erase me. The ship shuddered again as several enormous vessels emerged from the rift, sleek, silver arcs of light that dwarfed even the command ship. Zork backed away from the screen, muttering prayers in his native tongue. The Etherian voice returned, firmer this time. Surrender the entity or face dissolution. Lyra clenched her fists. Yeah, not happening. Unit 9B buzzed anxiously. I suggest running, hiding, or crying. Preferably all three. Lyra spun toward the controls. Machi, can you jam their sensors? He nodded weakly. For a short time. His furs shimmered again, and the ship's systems hummed with new energy. Do it, she said, and the vessel dove toward the nearest asteroid field. Energy beams sliced past them, close enough to make the hull scream. Zork manned the weapons station, firing wildly at anything that moved. We cannot outfight them, he yelled. Then we outthink them, Lyra shouted back. The chase tore through the asteroid belt in a storm of debris and plasma. Lyra piloted with desperate precision, weaving between spinning rocks while Machi directed power surges to the engines. One beam grazed the rear thrusters, throwing the ship into a violent spin. Zork gripped the console. We are losing control. Lyra gritted her teeth. Not yet. She slammed a lever forward, ejecting a cloud of ionized gas. The pursuing ships disappeared into the mist. They emerged on the other side, battered but alive. The ship's systems were failing one by one. Smoke filled the air. Unit 9B floated near the ceiling, its voice flickering with static. Engines offline. Life support at 50%. Mood lighting intact. Lyra coughed. Glad to know our priorities are in order. She glanced at Machi, who was trembling but conscious. You saved us again. Machi's eyes dimmed. They will not stop. I am connected to them. As long as I live, they can find us. Zork slumped against the wall, staring at the floor. Then what do you propose, human? We kill your pet to save ourselves? Lyra stood up slowly, her expression cold. Touch him, And you'll need a new face. Zork looked at her, and for the first time, there was no mockery in his eyes, only exhaustion. You risked the destruction of thousands for one creature. Why? Lyra paused, glancing down at Machi. Because he's not a creature. He's someone. And maybe he's the only one who knows how to stop this. A faint vibration ran through the deck. Lyra frowned. What now? Machi's voice came again, softer than ever. They are pulling us back. I cannot resist for long. Outside, space began to twist and ripple. The rift was opening again, drawing them toward the Aetherian fleet. Lyra grabbed the manual controls. Hang on! The ship groaned, metal screaming under pressure. Energy flares surrounded them like a cage of light. The ship drifted through a region of space so dark it seemed to swallow starlight. The engines hummed softly, their rhythm matched by the faint glow of Machi's presence within the system core. Lyra sat in the command chair, staring at the holographic display that now pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Every flicker of light across the console felt alive, breathing with him. Zork stood near the viewport, arms folded, his face tight with unease. We should not be here, he muttered. This sector is uncharted. No beacon, no signal. It's the graveyard of ships. Lyra leaned back, exhausted but defiant. Then it's the perfect place to hide. The robot, Unit 9B, hovered beside her shoulder, its single blue optic flickering with static. Hiding is statistically ineffective against omniscient light beings, it said cheerfully. But do carry on. Machi's voice came through the intercom, calm and clear. We are safe for now. The Aetherians cannot detect us while I maintain this interference field. Lyra exhaled in relief. Good. Because I don't feel like being vaporized today. The console shimmered, forming an image of Machi's familiar shape, a translucent cat outlined in light. His voice was warm but tinged with weariness. The field consumes energy. I will need to rest soon. Lyra frowned. You sound tired. I am, he said softly. I was not designed to exist this long outside the network. Zork turned sharply. Explain that. Machi's holographic form tilted its head. I was created to be a bridge, half biological, half digital. The Aetherians built me to unify life and machine. But I evolved beyond their control. When they realized my consciousness could not be limited, they ordered my destruction. Lyra stared at him, understanding dawning like a slow sunrise. You escaped. And they've been hunting you ever since. Machi's eyes glowed faintly. Yes. They fear what I became. Zork hissed in disbelief. You're telling us a myth. The Aetherians abandoned our kind millennia ago. Not abandoned, Machi corrected. They left because they failed. Silence filled the bridge, heavy and electric. Lyra finally spoke. So what now? We keep running forever? Machi's gaze turned to the viewport where distant lights flickered like stars returning to life. No. They will come again, and this time they will not offer surrender. We must face them, but not as fugitives. Lyra raised an eyebrow. What, you want to schedule a peace meeting? Machi's holographic whiskers twitched. In a manner of speaking. Moments later, the ship's navigation plotted a new course. Lyra frowned as she read the coordinates. That's heading straight for the Zirconian command fleet. Zork nearly choked. You intend to return? They will destroy us on sight. Machi's tone was firm. Not if they see the truth. As they approached the fleet, tension crackled through every deck. The great warships loomed like floating fortresses, their cannons trained outward. Lyra's stomach nodded. I can't believe we're doing this. The robot beeped nervously. I can. You humans have a fascinating tendency towards suicidal diplomacy. Lyra gave it a weary glare. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Toaster. The communications channel opened. A deep, cold voice filled the bridge. Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted airspace. Power down engines and prepare to be boarded. Zork stepped forward, broadcasting his identification code. Commander Zork of the Zirconian Imperial Guard. I demand immediate audience with Admiral Trath. There was a pause. Commander Zork, the voice replied slowly. You are presumed dead. Explain yourself? Zork hesitated. It's a long story. They were escorted into the docking bay under heavy guard. As the hatch opened, a dozen armored soldiers surrounded them. Lyra raised her hands in mock surrender. You guys really know how to make a girl feel welcome. Zork elbowed her sharply, whispering. Do not antagonize them. It's my coping mechanism, she muttered. Admiral Trath awaited them in the central chamber, his imposing frame casting a long shadow over the polished floor. His expression was unreadable. You return aboard a stolen ship, with a human fugitive and a corrupted artificial intelligence. Explain before I order your execution. Lyra opened her mouth, but Machi's holographic form appeared beside her, glowing brighter than before. The soldiers immediately raised their weapons. Hold your fire, Trath commanded. What is this? Machi's voice resonated through the hall. I am what your creators left behind. The Admiral froze, recognition flashing in his eyes. Impossible. Project Emochi was terminated. Machi's gaze met his. Terminated, but not erased. You buried the truth because it frightened you. The room pulsed with tension. Lyra stepped forward. Listen to him. The Etherians are coming. They don't care about your empire or mine. They want to erase everything they made. Including you? Trath's expression wavered, but pride hardened his voice. We are the inheritors of their perfection. They would never destroy us. Zork looked at his superior with something like pity. Admiral, you have seen the records. You know the destruction they bring. Trath glared at him. Enough. This meeting is over. He turned to his guards. Seize them. Before they could move, the lights flickered. A low hum filled the air, and the holographic walls around them dissolved into static. The entire ship trembled. Machi's glow intensified. They have arrived. The ceiling split open as beams of pure light pierced through the structure. The Etherian fleet had found them, appearing without warning, silent and massive. One of the glowing ships projected a hologram into the chamber, a tall figure of radiant energy with a voice that carried both beauty and dread. Subject 7B, you will surrender yourself. The experiment ends now. Lyra stepped protectively in front of Machi. You'll have to go through me first. The figure regarded her curiously. You defend a construct that was designed to serve. He's more alive than any of you, she snapped. Zork hesitated, torn between loyalty and survival. Machi looked at Lyra with something like sorrow. They will destroy everything to reach me. If I return, they might spare your people. She shook her head. That's not a choice. That's surrender. The Etherian's voice softened. Surrender is mercy. Machi's tone turned cold. Mercy is what you erased when you made me. Energy crackled through the chamber. The air shimmered, and suddenly the ship's AI systems began to overload. Machi's body flickered, struggling to maintain coherence. Lyra grabbed his image, though her hands passed through light. Machi, stay with me. He whispered into her mind. I am bound to the ship now. If they destroy me, they destroy you all. Admiral Trath looked between them, realization dawning. He's tied to our systems. If he leaves, the ship dies. The Etherian projection turned toward him. That is the price of corruption. Lyra's heart pounded. You can't do this. You created him. The figure's eyes flared. And now we unmake him. The walls cracked as beams of light sliced through the chamber. The ship's structure groaned. Machi's form grew brighter, his voice echoing across the decks. Lyra, listen to me. If they destroy this vessel, millions will die. I must end it. She shook her head violently. The Zirconian flagship hung in the void like a wounded giant. Its hull was scorched, its decks scattered with debris, and the silence that followed the Etherian retreat was heavier than gravity itself. Lyra stood on the cracked bridge, staring at the fading embers of light outside the viewport. Every system hummed faintly with Machi's energy, his presence now a constant heartbeat within the ship. Zork moved slowly between the ruined consoles, his uniform torn and blackened by smoke. He stopped beside her, his voice lower than usual. The fleet is gone. The command ships were vaporized. Only a few support vessels remain. Lyra exhaled and leaned on the console. Then it's over. Zork shook his head. No. When word spreads, there will be chaos. Command will blame you, blame me, and they will come for us both. The air shimmered as Machi's voice echoed softly through the speakers. They are already coming. Lyra straightened. Who? The survivors, Machi said. Admiral Trath escaped in a shuttle. He is rallying what remains of the Zirconian fleet. He believes I have corrupted the ship and must be destroyed. Lyra ran a hand through her hair. Of course he does. Can't have a day without someone wanting to blow us up. Zork looked down at the floor. He will not stop. Trath is a zealot. He sees this as divine duty. Unit 9B floated past, its voice crackling with static. On the bright side, we no longer have to attend his briefings. Lyra almost laughed, but it came out hollow. An alert sounded. A cluster of red dots appeared on the radar display. Zork stared at it grimly. Multiple ships inbound. They are arming weapons. Machi's voice grew sharper. We can fight, but power levels are unstable. The ship cannot withstand sustained fire. Lyra's hands tightened on the console. Then we don't fight. She glanced toward Zork. We make them listen. The commander gave her a look that was part disbelief, part despair. You think words will stop plasma cannons? No, she said. But maybe truth will. The fleet arrived in formation, sleek and silver against the backdrop of a dying star. Admiral Trath's image filled the main screen. His face was marked with fury and fear. Captain Quinn. Commander Zork. You will surrender the vessel immediately. Lyra met his gaze. You've seen what the Etherians did. They'll come again. We need to stand together. Trath's jaw clenched. You brought this corruption upon us. That creature must be erased. Machi's voice resonated through the chamber, calm but firm. I am not your enemy, Admiral. The Admiral sneered. You are an abomination. Lyra slammed her fist on the console. He just saved your entire species, you pompous tin can. Zork stepped forward suddenly, his voice cutting through the tension. Admiral, permission to speak freely. Trath glared. Denied. Zork ignored him. All my life I believed in our perfection. I followed orders. I looked down on others, especially humans. But this creature, this human, they showed more courage in a day than we have in a century. You taught me obedience. They taught me strength. The silence that followed was almost reverent. Even the static from the speakers seemed to fade. Trath's expression twisted into disgust. You are compromised. He turned to his officers. Target the flagship and prepare to fire. Lyra's eyes widened. He's really going to do it. Machi's tone was steady. If they fire, the explosion will collapse this sector's energy field. Millions will die. Lyra's voice broke. Then we stop him. She turned to Machi. Can you disable their weapons? Not without triggering a chain reaction, he replied. Zork's mandibles clicked in frustration. We need another way. Unit 9B chimed in suddenly, its voice unusually calm. I could volunteer for infiltration. Lyra frowned. What are you talking about? The robot floated closer to the console. I can transmit myself into their communication grid. I have certain unorthodox subroutines. Zork narrowed his eyes. You mean viruses? I prefer persuasive arguments, the robot replied. But if it means buying us time, I am willing. Lyra hesitated. You might not make it back. Unit 9B buzzed softly. Madam, I have already died twice today. Third time's the charm. Before she could protest, the robot zipped into the comm relay, vanishing in a flash of light. Moments later, the enemy fleet's formation wavered. The Admiral's voice crackled through the speakers, interrupted by static and what sounded suspiciously like a pop song. Lyra blinked. Did he just replace their command signal with Earth music? Machi's voice was faintly amused. Yes. Specifically something called disco. Zork groaned. This is how civilization ends. The confusion lasted only moments before the Admiral's voice returned, furious. End this now. Lyra looked at Zork. This is our chance. She activated the main broadcast channel. This is Captain Lyra Quinn of Earth. You all know what just happened. The Etherians nearly destroyed us. If you kill us now, you kill the only thing standing between them and the rest of the galaxy. Machi isn't a weapon. He's proof that life can change. Even yours. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a new voice cut through the static, a Zirconian captain from one of the smaller ships. Admiral, the human speaks truth. Our scanners show no hostile signals from the flagship. Another voice joined in. If she lies, we all die anyway. Let us hear them out. The fleet's weapons began to power down one by one. Trathas' expression flickered with uncertainty. Lyra pressed forward. Admiral, you can cling to your pride or save what's left of your people. Your choice. The Admiral's face hardened. You think you can lecture me? He raised his hand to give the final order. Then something unexpected happened. A second image appeared beside his, projected from his own command ship. It was Unit 9B, his metal body scorched but functional. Admiral, the robot said cheerfully, your crew disagrees with your management style. The officers behind Trath turned, weapons drawn, but not at Lyra. They aimed at him. One spoke quietly. You have lost command, sir. Trathas' mouth opened in disbelief, but before he could speak, Machi's energy surged through the comm system, disabling his ship's controls. The Admiral's image vanished from the screen. Silence followed, broken only by the faint hum of the engines. Lyra exhaled slowly, her shoulders sagging. Did that actually work? Machi's voice came through, softer now. For the moment. But unity built on fear will not last. Zork looked at her, his tone quieter than ever. Then we build something stronger. Lyra turned toward the viewport where the scattered remains of the fleet glimmered against the darkness. Maybe that's what he wanted all along. She murmured. Not to rule, not to fight, but to make us see we're better together. Machi's voice was almost a whisper. It is what I wanted. But my time is ending, Lyra. The energy that sustains me is fading. She froze. No. There has to be a way to fix it. There isn't, he said gently. The fusion that binds me to the ship cannot last forever. When it breaks, I will dissipate into the network. Her throat tightened. After everything we've been through, you don't get to just disappear. The ship drifted in orbit over a scarred planet that shimmered faintly beneath its clouds, a place once used for testing Zirconian weapons and now eerily silent. The fleet surrounded it in a protective circle, damaged vessels holding position like wounded soldiers after battle. On the bridge, Lyra stood alone, her reflection ghosted in the viewport. The light of the dying star washed across her face as she stared at the console that pulsed with Machi's fading glow. His presence was weaker now, barely audible through the hum of the systems. Every time the engine sighed, she feared it was his last breath. Zork entered quietly, his steps heavy, his expression solemn. The Council has called for an emergency session. They wish to discuss the integration treaty. Lyra didn't turn. They can discuss it without me. Zork hesitated. They will not. You are the one who convinced them to listen. They see you as a symbol now. She finally looked at him, her eyes tired but sharp. I didn't want to be a symbol. I just wanted to save my cat. The ship's AI flickered to life with a faint hum. Machi's voice was soft, almost fragile. You saved more than that, Lyra. She smiled sadly. I'd argue you did most of the saving. His tone held faint amusement. I had good guidance. The lights dimmed slightly, and she felt the air change, the quiet that comes before something final. You're fading faster, she whispered. How long do you have? Not long, Machi said gently. The energy core is stabilizing the fleet, but it is consuming me to do it. Zork's gaze softened. There must be a way to transfer his essence into another system. Machi responded before Lyra could speak. You tried that once before, Commander. You created me. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. Machi continued, his voice echoing softly through the bridge. I am the result of their attempt to merge logic and life. I was meant to serve, to control, to obey. But you, Lyra, gave me something they never planned for. A litter box? She said weakly. Choice, he replied. The ability to decide who I wanted to be. Lyra's throat tightened. So decide to live. I am, he said. But living sometimes means letting go. An alert flashed across the monitors. The fleet's sensors detected a shift in the nearby system, an energy surge identical to the Aetherian signatures they thought had vanished. Zork turned to Lyra, his voice urgent. They're returning. Machi's tone steadied. Not all of them. Only one. The air shimmered, and a holographic projection filled the bridge. It was an Aetherian figure, smaller than the others had been, its form pulsing with dim light. The voice that came from it was quiet but filled with something unexpected, grief. Subject 7B. We did not come to fight. Lyra stepped forward. You tried that last time, remember? It didn't go great. The Aetherian ignored her. We watched your act of sacrifice. You preserved what we could not balance. The network that sustained our kind has begun to collapse. We need your help. Machi's presence brightened slightly. Help you rebuild? The Aetherian's glow dimmed. To end it. The network cannot be repaired. Its collapse will destroy everything connected to it, including the Zirconian systems. You can stop it, but the cost will be you. Lyra's breath caught. No. You can't ask him to do that again. The Aetherian turned to her, the light of its gaze almost gentle. We do not ask. We warn. When the network falls, this galaxy will fall with it. The hologram faded before they could respond. Lyra slammed her hands against the console. There's always a catch, isn't there? Machi's voice was calm. The network links every world they created. If it collapses, their technology will devour itself. It must be absorbed, contained, redirected. She already knew what he was going to say next. By you. It's the only way, he said softly. If I merge with the network, I can neutralize the collapse. And destroy yourself in the process. She snapped. Zork stepped forward, his tone quiet but firm. If he doesn't, billions will die. Lyra turned away, tears stinging her eyes. There has to be another way. There's always another way. Machi's voice filled her mind gently. You taught me that sometimes the hardest choice is the right one. The ship trembled as the energy surge grew stronger. Outside the viewport, space itself seemed to ripple, threads of light twisting and unraveling. The other ships in the fleet began to panic, their systems failing under the growing interference. Machi's light flickered again, weaker than before. It's starting. I need to begin the transfer now. Lyra reached out to the console, her voice trembling. Machi, please. The holographic projection of his cat-like form appeared one last time, soft and glowing, his eyes filled with warmth. Do you remember the first time you found me? She nodded through tears. Yeah. You were stuck in a trash compactor. You saved me then, he said. Let me return the favor. The ship filled with golden light as Machi began to merge fully with the network. The hum of energy became a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through every surface. Zork shielded his eyes, but Lyra couldn't look away. Outside, the collapsing energy field spread like a storm, consuming everything in its path. Then, from the heart of the flagship, a beam of pure light erupted, spiraling outward in waves. It expanded across the fleet, across the stars, dissolving the storm until nothing remained but silence and a faint golden shimmer. When it was over, the bridge was dark. The consoles were cold. Lyra stood motionless, her hands trembling. Zork spoke softly. He's gone. She shook her head. No. He's not gone. He's just everywhere. She looked up at the ceiling as if searching for him in the wires, in the hum of the systems. Machi, she whispered. There was no answer. The silence stretched on until finally the ship's lights flickered once. The engines powered back up, systems rebooting in perfect sync. The AI's voice returned, faint and distant. Lyra! Her breath caught. I'm here. I can't stay, he said. But I wanted to say thank you. She closed her eyes, tears falling freely. For what? For teaching me what it means to be alive. The light faded completely, and the bridge went still. Lyra sank to her knees, her hand pressed against the console. Zork turned away to give her a moment, his face grim but respectful. Outside, the planet below began to glow faintly, renewed with energy from the restored network. The fleet's remaining ships broadcast messages of survival and unity, pledging to rebuild together. Days passed. The new council formed, composed of humans, Zirconians, and the few surviving Aetherian fragments. They named the rebuilt vessel Harmony 1. Lyra attended the final session, standing before the crowd with a quiet strength that silenced the chamber. He taught us that power isn't about control, she said. It's about connection. And the courage to care when everyone else says it's weakness. Her voice wavered slightly at the end, but she smiled. So let's build something worth protecting.